So it was following the resurrection. See, you're already laughing. For those of you that are here for the first time, I do tend to tell a joke or two. Okay. So it was following the resurrection, and the disciples were still somewhat scattered around Jerusalem and the surrounding villages. And the disciple John spots fellow disciple Peter and runs up to him excitedly and says, "Peter, Peter, I've got some good news and some bad news." And Peter takes a hold of John and calms him down and says, "Take it easy, John. What is it? What's the good news?" John says, "Well, the good news is Jesus is risen." And Peter said, "That's great. But what's the bad news?" John, looking around, says, "He's really steamed about last Friday." Easter jokes are a little hard to come by. Yeah. All right, well, welcome. And again, happy Easter. And so I think you get a sense of how we've been, or what rather we've been working with since Palm Sunday. That those old Judas experiences in our life. Okay, so let me just recap the story. For those of you, the biblical account, for those of you that know that or maybe don't know that, is that so Jesus is with his disciples, and it's the night of the Passover meal. And Judas, his trusted, really close friend, who had been with him for 3 years, who was the financier, it's a better word, our financial advisor of the whole ministry of Jesus. So he was very trusted. He was a visionary. He was very strong. Decides to betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver to the chief priest. And so, how we teach the Bible in unity is that we always want to take it deeper. We always want to look at how the story can support us in our lives now. And so when we have a story that has specific characters, we often will look at how is that character showing up in my life? And so what we've been doing in this Holy Week, really every week is holy, but this week we have been really looking at Judas and the Judas experiences of our life. I mean, I'm looking at a room of mostly adults, and I think I can say with certainty that you've had at least one probably major Judas experience in your life, where someone has not seen you, where maybe you have entrusted them with something and they violated that trust, where maybe because of what they said or what they did, that you feel like you can't maybe love as much as you did, you can't trust as much as you did. And so what we did on Good Friday was we brought those experiences here and we washed our hands of them. We released them. And so I think, though, it can still be, how do I really do that? How do I really release those experiences because they've had a profound impact on our life? Well, how I was guided is to pick up another book by Brené Brown. Her most recent book is called Rising Strong. Imagine that. And so she supports us in a kind of a how-to way that I felt was so appropriate to bring to you, to share with you on Easter Sunday. And I'm going to share a Judas experience with you as well this morning. So Brené talks about, okay, so we have a Judas experience. And I can guarantee, because I know with mine, I have a story. And let me tell you, that story has details, and I know how it happened. Yeah. And so her first And this is a very encapsulated version of this. I strongly encourage you to pick up that book because it's just wonderful. But the first thing she recommends is for us to come to a reckoning with it. Because sometimes when people have hurt us, we will stuff it. We will deny its impact on us because for whatever reason, I don't have time for that. I got to pull myself up by my bootstraps and keep going to work and keep doing my thing. And for whatever reason, we might avoid it. We might deny it. But she said the first step in working with any experience that I'm going to call, she doesn't call it a Judas experience, but I'm going to call it that. The first step is coming to a reckoning about it. And what that means is you get curious. Wow, I'm noticing that every time that person that I had this situation with comes into the room, I'm feeling very anxious. Or I feel like I want to run out of the room screaming, or whatever it is. To start getting conscious, to start getting curious about what's going on. That's all. That's the first step. Because once we get curious, we're going to move into the second step that she talks about. We rumble with it. And that's the part where sometimes we just really don't want to do it, right? It's our human nature. It's okay. But the opportunity that we have to move through the Judas experiences of our life is to start asking questions. To start asking questions. What's really going on here? What are the facts? And this may sound familiar to those of you that worked with the 5 agreements in the fall. See how things overlap. What are the facts? But what assumptions am I making about this? Because truly, folks, we're making assumptions when we think we know exactly what happened. Because I guarantee you, if it's with another person, they probably will have a very different perspective, right? What do I get to learn about this? And one of the tougher questions to ask is, what's my part? What do I get to learn? What am I holding on to? How do I really feel about this? And see, to go there is vulnerable. Brene Brown is most renowned for her TED Talk on shame. Because we can feel shame. We can feel shame when we start to feel vulnerable. But I have a quote that I want to read to you from the book. And actually, the quote is from C.S. Lewis. And it says, "To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will certainly be wrong and possibly be broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully round with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. To love is to be vulnerable." Okay, let's take a deep breath. Yeah. And can we just run from that? And so I'm going to be vulnerable with you, and I really worked with my wisdom. I said, no, I don't want to do that. And it said, oh, yeah, you want to do that. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. It's Easter Sunday. There are going to be people there that don't know me, and they're going to think I'm... But it's part of being a minister, I've decided. So I wanted to share with you my absolute biggest Judas experience. And I'm sharing it with you because I feel like in the sharing, let's create community around it, and let's know that, let me tell you, if I can move through this one, I am holding the high watch with all of you for whatever it has been for you. All right. So my mom was raised in Charlotte in a family with 2 parents and a sister. My father, on the other hand, was raised in an orphanage and foster homes because his parents died at the age of 8. And his family, the family that was remaining, did not take him in. And so the orphanage was a pretty good experience for him, but the foster homes were pretty much a nightmare for him. He was treated very inhumanely, abused. It was just not good. But anyway, there was a social worker in North Carolina that took an interest in my dad because my dad wanted to go to Georgia Tech and play football. And by golly, that's exactly what happened. And so he goes and he gets a college education. He comes out. He marries my mom. They have 2 kids. And life in Charlotte, North Carolina was great. We were all going to church and we were involved in lots of things. When all of a sudden, things started to shift. And my father turned to alcohol, and he turned to smoking about 3 packs of cigarettes a day, infidelity, and physical abuse to his children. It was not a happy family situation. And so my family had to work with this until my father decided he had to leave when I was 3. So he left when I was 3. And my mother had a secretarial course that she had taken. So she went and raised 2 children on a secretary's salary. And folks, we didn't have heat in our house. The only heat we had sometimes in the winter was the oven that was turned on in the kitchen. We lived on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for weeks on end, which as kids, we thought that was the greatest thing in the world. But when my grandparents found out, they were not happy about that because, of course, my mother was proud. She didn't want to let them know. And so as a little girl, I saw my mama struggling. I saw her hurting. I saw how scared she was. And, of course, as a little one, I took that on. And I was in denial about how dadgum mad I was at my father. If anybody would ask me about it, I'd say, oh, no, I'm fine. I'm loyal to my mom. We're getting along great. Raised in the house of females. The only biggest fight we have is who's in the bathroom. However, in 1994, a friend asked me to go to LifeSpring. I don't know if you're familiar with LifeSpring. It's some personal growth workshops. And in that beginning weekend, I discovered, oh my goodness, how much I had stuffed my anger at my father and all the pain he had caused my family. And so I started to reckon with it. I got curious about it, and I started to rumble with it. And boy, did I ask some questions. And so I got to a place where I could pick up the phone and call my father. At that point, I had not seen him in over 20 years. And I called my father and I said, can I come meet with you? And my knees were knocking. And he came and picked me up at the airport. And we went to his house. And we sat at his dining room table. And I asked him the questions. And folks, I saw a man with tears streaming down his face at his regret and his guilt and his shame. And he shared with me that at the moment that he left my family when I was 3 years old, that he was this close to suicide. And he apologized, and he told me how much he loved me. And I got to tell you, that was such a moment. I could feel my heart open. I could feel the compassion come back. That was 1994, and my father made his transition in 2000 from pulmonary fibrosis. I had 6 precious years with my dad. I share this story with you because I had to rumble with it. I had to work with it. And folks, I gotta tell you, Judas metaphysically represents life. And we think, how in the world could it represent life? He was responsible for Jesus dying. But think about it. We're here on Easter Sunday. Jesus rose. Jesus had an experience, according to the story, of embodying his divinity in the greatest way possible. That would have never happened if Judas hadn't done what he had done. And I am here to tell you, I would not be the person I am today without my dad in that experience, because I rose strong in my knowing. Thank you for that. Because I am going to say it took some courage. It did. And another thing is, we might not be able to sit down always across the table from someone. That doesn't mean we can't heal. It doesn't mean we can't let it go. Folks, the Judas experiences of our life can be life-affirming when we let them be, when we work with them, when we go deeper, when we have the courage to ask the questions and allow ourselves to be supported along the way. I didn't do that by myself. I had people holding my hands and holding me in prayer when I was meeting my dad. Welcome to spiritual community, folks. That's who we are, and that's who we get to be for each other. We are walking the path to say yes to our life. We rise strong on this Easter Sunday. So, this is what we're going to do. Okay, you ready? All right, we're going to do a little ritual. So thank you if we just run a few minutes behind, but this just felt really important to me to do today. So, okay, every single time that we're open, that we're courageous, that we're willing to ask the questions, we are planting seeds in our consciousness of new life and new possibility, right? Okay. Because the whole point, folks, I am clear, the whole point of any Judas experience in our life is for us to know more clearly the truth of what we are. That's the whole point. So what we're going to do this morning is the ushers are going to come up. Ushers, will you come up? And they are going to direct you to a table where you are going to have the opportunity to plant some seeds. I mean, literally plant some seeds. So what you will do is, as the ushers direct you to a table, you are going to come up to this table and you are going to pick, the teeniest little pinch of seeds, because we don't need too many, and you're going to place them in the very center of one of these lovely dirt pods on this table. That's all you have to do, all right? And what's going to happen is these flowers are going to bloom. They are going to rise strong. They're all white. They're going to rise strong, and we're going to plant them on our campus. And it is going to be a representation of how we are saying yes to life and rising strong in the beauty and all of it. Are you yes? Are you yes? All right. So, Jim, if you would just underscore, and then our ushers are just going, and if everyone would move toward the center aisle, and then come back around, just come up as a row. So this row stand, and you come this way. Yes, Shirley, come on. Wow. Let's give a hand to our seed planting staff. And also, please, to the staff that I work with every week, bless their hearts as we have planned this ritual. So thank you. Thank you so much for planting all those beautiful seeds of possibility that will express as infinite life and beauty. Because, folks, that's what you are. It's what you are. And so to celebrate the infinite life and beauty that you are, as you leave the sanctuary today, we have several vases of gorgeous flowers. Please take one. Take a flower and let it remind you of your beauty, your life, your wholeness, your perfection. Okay? All right, so let's affirm our affirmation together. I rise strong in my knowing and claiming of my Christ nature and feel the freedom, joy, and peace it brings. Yes, we do, and so it is.